What is your real life 20 seconds of courage story that changed everything? The time I panicked and attacked a high schooler when I was 11. Said high schooler was this creepy dude who had a bit too keen of an interest in the neighborhood kids. I saw him picking on a little girl who lived on the other side of the projects from me, and her mom was nowhere in sight. I was afraid he was going to beat her up, so I just freaking attacked him like a rabid badger. I didn't do any damage because I am 11. He's probably legally an adult, and the size difference is kind of evident, but the little girl ran home. He ended up fleeing, probably for the same reason a bear will run from a house cat, and I booked it home because I realized I had been mean and would get in trouble. Wasn't until the girl's mom came to thank me that I realized I'd actually done good, and he wasn't just trying to beat up a 4-year-old. This is awesome. I've been that girl once or twice, so thank you for this. I was perhaps 14. I was swimming at our local club, in the shallow end near the stairs. A little girl, must have been 4 or 5, came off of the stairs. I thought she was swimming for a moment and then I noticed she was bobbing up and down, starting to drown. I didn't think and I grabbed her and pulled her to the stairs where she started to sob because she was so scared. Her mother ran over and grabbed her and thanked me. The lifeguard never looked twice. It was right time, right place. I lived for a long time with the fear of what would have happened had I not been there. You were some courageous 14-year-old. I'm sure that both the girl and her family are grateful that you were there that day as well. My first job in college was as a barista at this little cafe near campus. It was a super trendy spot and the pay wasn't great, but I liked it because working there made me feel really cool. The general manager was kinda shady, though. He was friends with the owner and had been working there a long time, so no one wanted to question his shadiness for fear that it would result in being fired. I started to notice that the women who worked with me seemed really uncomfortable when he was around, and when I talked to them about it I found out that he had been sending them creepy Facebook messages asking about their boyfriends, giving out a lot of unwanted and lingering hugs at work, and some occasional downright weird crap like making jokes about putting roofies in the drinks of attractive customers. No one wanted to bring this up with the owner because they knew that at such a trendy cafe, it wouldn't be hard to fire all the baristas and replace them with a new crop of eager college students. So they put up with him but were really uneasy all the time. I started watching him to see when he was being a creep so that I could try to distract him, make things easier for my female co-workers. But I was also scared of losing my job, so I didn't want to be too confrontational or talk to the owner. One day, though, he said something really weird about a female customer. I think it was something along the lines of imagine tying her to your bed. And I just lost my crap and was like, dude, you're freaking done. In that moment of clarity, rage, courage, whatever it was, I immediately called up the owner and told him about what this dong had just said and that it wasn't the first time he had said something like this. I made sure that I wasn't implicating any of my female co-workers in this because I didn't want to endanger their jobs. I knew my job was on the line now, but I didn't care anymore. I told the owner that either this guy went or I did. The guy was fired. The owner said that he was very impressed with how direct and articulate I was, and he actually promoted me to shift manager. I worked there for another year and learned a crap ton and gained a lot of confidence from the experience of being a manager, which helped me transition into real adult jobs later. You are wonderful. Didn't really psychically change anything but change a lot mentally. I work as a lifeguard, and for 9 months in this job I have had no incidents. The oldest lifeguard there had been working at that pool for 3 years and has only had to pull a kid from the water who was in minor difficulty. So overall nothing happens in this pool. The pool has regulars and since it's a premium club we are encouraged to get to know these people. This one guy always chats to me and is super pleasant, and he comes over from the fast lane and I see him slip and grip onto the rail. Thought he had fallen, so I went over and just. His face, half of it was sagged, his eyes were almost completely red from bloodshot, and he stared right through me. He had a stroke. I guess I managed to keep my cool though. Hit the alarm in the water and had him out before everyone else had come. I don't know if he's okay. I guess my mental health has taken a turn for the better after that. I'm not scared anymore, not riddled with anxiety. I don't know why it's like that, or if it'll wear off, but I'll keep with it at the moment. I don't think it will wear off. You'll always remember his face and the courage you showed that day, and that perhaps will help you to be even more courageous in other aspects of your life. Lived in an apartment that had a community center. At the time I had no internet, so I would hang out there and use the Wi-Fi. I was there all the time, so I knew most of the people that would hang around. Well, one night it's just me and two girls, probably around 10-12 years old. A middle-aged man came in, approached me and said something about how sexy they looked. Crap made me absolutely uncomfortable. A few minutes later he approached the girls and started chatting them up. You could tell how uncomfortable they looked. I finally got the courage and told him what he was doing was inappropriate and I was going to call the cops if he didn't leave. Thank God he did just that. The girls' parents came to get them and I was able to tell them what happened and gave a description of the man. One night when me and my sister were still young enough to share a room, I couldn't sleep for some reason. After a while I noticed my sister making weird sounds in her crib and I turned on the light and she had somehow gotten her head stuck in her crib. I don't know what would have happened if I was able to sleep that night. Fate was like you ain't done yet and kept you up on purpose, dude. Good on you for being there for your sister. So this was a fake courage moment. I guess saying that the courage was real but the danger wasn't. A decade ago my mom used to always sleep on the couch, L-shaped, no man in her life. And sometimes I'd fall asleep out there on the other end of the couch with her watching a movie or something. One night I woke up and I don't know if I was still just half dreaming or what the deal was, but I saw a figure. Looked like a man. I asked who the heck are you, got no response, so I just jumped up and charged them. Took me a second to realize I charged nothing but air, but was proud of myself that I was ready to throw down. Dang straight. You were ready, willing and able. No matter if the threat was real, you know who you are. I got married at 18 to a guy who was 2 years older than me. 2 weeks into the marriage he became mentally and physically abusive, cut me off from my friends, and cheated on me repeatedly for months to come. I wasn't allowed to leave my house alone unless I was with him or a parent, who he luckily didn't cut me off from. I also wasn't allowed a car or a job. The signs were there before the wedding, but I was young and stupid and just wanted what I thought was love. When the only thing you can do is housework and cook for your husband, you end up having a lot of free time, and I started playing his video games. I ended up making some true friendships on Xbox Live. Then one day one of my friends on there invited someone I never played with before, who we will call Jake. The three of us played all the time together. I was secretly texting Jake and playing with him alone whenever we got a chance, until one day he told me he loved me. I knew at that point I loved him too, but I couldn't just leave my husband. Well, after the next time he hit me I ended up getting a Greyhound bus ticket to a different state to be with Jake. It took me not even 1 minute after he hit me to start planning my getaway. I didn't know if Jake would let me live with him. I didn't have any money but $100 I saved over the months. He easily accepted me with open arms and we have been together ever since. We are now engaged and we have worked our asses off for everything we now have. He is a phenomenal person, funny, smart and absolutely more handsome than I deserve. My leaving my home state changed my life irrevocably, but I would do it again. TLDR. Was in an abusive marriage and left in the middle of the night to a different state after less than a minute of thought. This is truly inspiring. I'm glad that it worked out for you and Jake, and that you had the courage to leave your abusive husband. I was walking at 3 AM. Not a bright idea as a tiny 17-year-old girl at the time. I remember being hit in the head and falling to the ground. I was a block away from home. I immediately felt someone climb on top of me and start feeling me up, their hands roaming around. I immediately started screaming and writhing as fast as possible. I jumped up despite the weight of this person on me and then turned around and started screaming at the dude. I had lost a shoe. I grabbed it off of my foot and started to run after him with it over my foot and screaming at him. I threatened to kill him as I ran after him. That is my one moment of bravery. Without it, I could have been really hurt. This is amazing. I'm so happy you're okay. I was at the river with my autistic guy friend and his autistic little sister. We were just relaxing on the sand and chatting away when I heard a scream from the water. I look and it's my friend's sister, struggling to stay afloat. Somehow she had gone outside of the boundary line. I immediately spring up, run to the river, and dive in. She disappeared under the water, and since I don't possess the skill of having your eyes open underwater and seeing clearly, I had to rely on touch. Eventually I grabbed her torso and reached the surface. She was coughing and spluttering as my friend made his way into the water to get his sister. What happened? Was she drowning or something? Yeah, I don't know why she went out past the line, but she would have died if we weren't around. Here, take her, please. She's kinda heavy. My friend took his sister and made his way back to the shore. I followed him. His family decided they wouldn't go to the river anymore. A week later I went over to my friend's house and asked his sister why she went past the boundary line. She responded with, "I wanted to see the cool looking island in the middle of the river." She has a weird fascination with islands and likes to spend time googling various islands and just staring at them, then bugging her parents to take her there. The island thing is kinda cute. Maybe she could be an island geographer one day. I'd been visiting a very close friend for the weekend and came home to my mother. She was abusive and started screaming at me basically immediately, as well as some physical violence. I texted him to come get me because I couldn't take it anymore. He drove an hour and I spent the next few days in the car. He lived far away but was in the area for a while. I still live with him. Since I've cut off my family, I can function as a person, and I'm so much healthier. It's changed my entire life. That's extremely wonderful to hear. I'm glad you're doing better. Also, your friend is the absolute man. Anybody that takes another into their home on a whim is somebody worth sticking with. I'm glad you're happy, dude. D. When I was a freshman in college, I always took the same walking route to my 9 AM class. One day I decided to take another route. On that route I noticed a girl riding a bike coming in my direction. The next thing that happened can only accurately be described as the slow motion scene from the movie Big Fish. For those that haven't seen it, the main character notices a beautiful woman and stares at her in a slow motion. But then time catches up and everything moves fast forward, so he wasn't able to talk to her. This exact thing happened to me. I could barely see her face before she disappeared. From then on I kept taking that same route for months with no avail. One day I attended a biology tutoring session. I sat in the front and throughout the session there was a voice in the back answering every question right without fail. In my mind I thought, man, whoever this is must be the best in the class. At the end of the session I turned around and there she was, the angel on a bike. I've never confronted anyone about my feelings since I was in middle school for fear of rejection. It took more than 20 seconds of courage, but rather a lifetime of it. I went to approach her with a lame story about how I'm putting together a study group. She said she'd join and even offered her phone number. 6 years later we are married with 2 amazing kids and she is still every bit as beautiful as she was the day I first saw her. TLDR. Found the woman of my dreams and spoke to her. We have been married for 6 years. Dynamitaba. I've never confronted anyone about my feelings since I was in middle school for fear of rejection. It took more than 20 seconds of courage. Me. Oh okay, I guess they fell in love, got married and had 6 kids. Dynamitaba. 6 years later we are married with 2 amazing kids and she is still every bit as beautiful as she was the day I first saw her. Me. AAHHH. I don't know if this counts yet, but it was like senior year in HS and I'd been dating this guy like a month. It was that kind of relationship where you date but really you just kinda text and wave shyly when you see each other. Yes, we were older than most kids who do that. I'm just cringily shy and he went along with it. It easily could have ended in us breaking up and never speaking up again. And I knew that, but I liked him more than I'd like anyone so far, so I figured it was worth it to actually try. One day I knew the end would come up soon if I didn't make a move, so I went up to him and kinda grabbed his hand. And then we started talking for real. Well, now it's been like 4 years and he's my favorite person. We're talking about getting engaged and he makes every day better, so yeah, go me. Good for you for breaking out of your shell. I know that it's a very hard thing to do and you should really feel proud that you did it. I hope you and him spend many happy years together. D. My buddy had a party in high school. A bunch of us were there to help clean up the next morning. We're only halfway done when his pops shows up on the driveway. Everyone bolts, me included. Him there running through the back fence with the other 5, and then in a moment of clarity, I turn around and just start cleaning up again. Everyone else noticed and turned around and just got back to cleaning too. The dad was upset. He made sure we cleaned the whole dang house spotless, but he wasn't furious. He gathered us all up after and told us he was going to ground his son, but since he seemed to have loyal friends and a game plan to clean up, he made us all lunch instead. That's a valuable life lesson right there. I was in a relationship, a bad one. He had isolated me from my family and was in control of my phone so I couldn't contact anyone. He had me holed up in his room all day, after manipulating me into moving in, telling me that his family hated me and telling them that I was shy and scared. I had to wear long sleeves and pants to hide the bruises. He had my keys and wouldn't let me leave without him. It lasted 6 months and we were, finally, at my parents' place after breaking up and him deciding to take me back. We were sitting on my bed, in my parents' house, and all I could do was stare at him, once again talking about himself. And I snapped. In my head I just kept repeating, shut up, I don't want this, I don't want you. My 20 seconds of courage texting my dad and sister to come down to my room so that when I told him I was done, he wouldn't be able to physically change my mind by hitting me or insisting he would be the only man to ever love me. His family came to pick him up, and last I heard, 4 years ago, he got arrested for stealing from Walmart. His 16-year-old GF is prego. He's 24, and his life is exactly where it was. Mine is drastically different. I am in school, really close to my degree, and am engaged to a man who makes me feel so lucky to have him in my life. And we have 2 kitties and a chameleon. 20 seconds of courage to gain 20 plus years of happiness. 100% worth it. Virtual claps, how beautiful. I was maybe 16 at the time and had just gotten home from school. I had been home all of maybe 2 minutes when 2 of the kids that my neighbor babysits knocks on the door. As soon as I answer the door, they yell the house is on fire. Of course it takes me a second to comprehend that they were being serious. So I run over to my neighbor's house and I immediately see the flames in her front bedroom window, but there is no sign of my neighbor. Let's call her Donna. So I open up the front door and of course I can't see more than a few feet ahead of me. I yell for Donna a few times but don't get any reply, so I have no other choice but to go in and try to find her. I make it back to the kitchen before I finally hear her reply. When I found her, she was getting buckets of water and trying to put the fire herself. I'll add that while I was trying to get her to respond, I had my younger sister call 911 and give them the address. I kept trying to get her to leave the house because it had gotten to the point that my eyes felt like they were melting and my throat and lungs were on fire, but she wouldn't. She said she couldn't lose everything. Finally, after what felt like 20 minuets, less than 1 minute in reality, I grab her and carry her outside as she is crying. When I get her outside, she tells me her Dig and cat were in the back bedroom on the other end of the house. So I run back in there and immediately head to the back bedroom and find the animals in the closet and bring them outside, which wasn't easy since both animals were scared. But the time everyone was outside and safe, it had been less than 5 minutes since the kids told me the house was on fire, and shortly after that the fire department had showed up and began to put the fire out. No one was hurt, but Donna lost everything and both her and I ended up having to go to the hospital for smoke inhalation. How it changed everything for me is that it was honestly the scariest moment of my life. I ended up having nightmares for months afterward about fires. And even to this day, I'm 23 now, I'm worried that my house is going to catch fire. Just did 8 hours of courage. I'm extremely antisocial and got a hot cook job and I pretty much make steaks all day. Poorly. It was terrifying, but frick it, I got through it, terrified the whole way. Good job. I was 10 in 5th grade. I am a year younger than everyone else, and because of my age and genetics, I was much smaller than everyone else. So during this after school program, I being bullied by another kid in 5th grade. He was the tall, bulky, athletic type and he seemed to get a real kick out of picking on me. He would pick me up, swing me around, and generally make my life as miserable as possible. So one day, during some time on the basketball courts, which were asphalt, I was sitting doing nothing while he and his similarly built friends were tossing around a football. He had been bullying me for a few days straight, and I had reported him to the teachers twice. They did absolutely nothing. This day, however, the bully decided to step it up. He took the football he had and lobbed it full force. It hit me in the face. My face was in serious pain. And that was the last straw. I sprinted as fast as I could towards him, and before he could even react I tackled him, looped my arms around his waist, picked him up off the ground, and dropped him. Without skipping a beat I jumped on him, pinned him, and started to choke him out. A teacher had to come rip me off of him. I almost got kicked out of the school, but he almost got sent to the emergency room. Once I explained the situation I got off the hook. So, less courage and more rage, but I haven't been bullied by anyone since. Kudos to you for standing up to a bully like that. Violence isn't the greatest problem solver, but it made you prove a point. I live in a small town surrounded by forest. Bears are like rats in our town, and one night my dog woke us up whining because she heard something in our garbage outside. I jumped out of bed, locked the dog in the house. Hubby was still waking up, and chased the bear away. It was stupid, but it's funny since nothing bad happened. Wow, must be nice to have such small bears. Last year I had to do it constantly. I wasn't getting anywhere because I'm a very paranoid person and typically anxious. I needed an internship. Too scared to approach people. I wanted a job. Could barely get an interview and would come close to pee myself each time. Decided that if I could just appear confident for interview, for semester schedule, for presentation, we could reward ourselves with the biggest freaking honey bun we could find. I started asking myself why are we scared and realized it's pretty dumb. How bad is the cashier going to judge a young woman for buying pads? Why would your professor judge you for having to come to him to schedule classes, knowing full well he's the only one who can? Are these people really going to go out of their way to frick you up just because you gave a required presentation in class that no one cares about? Because of those moments, I'm now a mostly confident butthole. Turns out I'm bitter from all those years of bullying and exclusion in school. 3 Apparently people like confidence. I got 2 jobs within a year after nothing for 4. I've made a bunch of friends and connections. I started a business and regularly meet with clients regarding bad news when SHTF. And I've had 3 people hit on me in the last 6 months. That's 3 more than my entire childhood and teenage years. Whoa, that's awesome. Currently I am you in your teenage years. I really want to gain confidence in college because I know how important connections are. Reading this comment is really inspiring and I hope one day I can be like the present you. Went camping in a provincial park where there were bluffs where people are jumping off into the water. I was a certified lifeguard at the time, but I was there on a camping trip. I have an immense fear of heights. I figured I'd just hang out on the safe part and let my friends have their fun. About 10 minutes into our adventure, I hear a woman screaming at her kid to kick his legs and keep his head up. The panic in her voice was palpable. I go over to see what the frick is going on, and her kid is floundering in the water, easily 100+ meters below me. She can't jump in because her leg is in a cast. I go back a few meters, and sprint to the edge of the bluffs as hard as I can and jump, praying to almighty toast that I don't land on the kid. I hit the water about 10 feet from the kid, swim over to him underwater, and come up behind him, locking him in a safety hold. People that are drowning panic and will drown you with them. I egg beater us to the area where you can get out of the water. Kid is coughing up a small lake. We get back to the top of the bluffs and the mother is hysterical, saying her kid isn't a strong swimmer. Like, why would you let him jump then? Still hate heights. The almighty toast Lomeo. A couple things. I don't think they're courageous or anything, but anyway, my son had bad stomach issues as a baby, so sometimes I'd prop him up in a pillow and sleep next to him. I was asleep but something told me to wake up. I didn't care if it was instinct or what, but my baby was face down on the bed and it took me a minute to wake him up. Second thing was when my son had febrile seizures. He turned purple and instead of freaking the frick out, which I was on the inside, I immediately called 911 and had her walk me through how to cool him and make sure he didn't hurt himself. Scariest moment of my life, but I'm glad I called 911 and didn't panic. Was a senior in high school. Had to share a locker room for my team sports class with a freshman gym class. These 3 girls were doing laps around the locker room and I realized they were targeting the intellectually disabled girl who changed at the locker next to me. These girls were all way bigger than me and from a rough part of the city. I am tiny and outnumbered. They made another lap and intentionally pushed each other into this girl and I completely snapped. They got in my face like they were going to get physical, and I stood my ground and told them off for being absolute crap for humans. They backed off and I walked out of the locker room and started yelling at their teacher for not protecting his vulnerable students. Nothing ever came of it, but they stopped bullying the poor girl. In front of me at least. Frick, I'm P about it again just writing about it. B. 2 instances. I was about 13 or 14 and hanging out at the local ice skating rink. We were in the bench area either taking the skates off or putting them on. Don't remember which one. My friend had a bottle cap in his mouth and I'm not quite sure what happened, but the next thing I know I turn around and see him turning blue, his mouth moving but no sound coming out and motioning toward his throat. He had somehow swallowed the cap and it got stuck in his throat, cutting off his air supply. I leapt up and immediately do the Heimlich on him. After about 3 or 4 pumps, the cap coming wheezing out. The second was about 14 years ago working as a restaurant manager. I was driving along a New Jersey interstate to go to work. It was a little bit before 6 AM on a Saturday morning and there were maybe 4 cars on the road in a 5-mile stretch. I was doing at least 70 plus and I noticed this car, small little sedan, in the rear view mirror coming up very quickly. It was in my same middle lane and closing without much indication that it was going to go around me. I'm not sure if I should move to the right or just let the car move into the left lane and pass me. The car comes right up on my tail, stomps on the brakes, swerves around to my right, and passes me doing at least 95 plus. Just up ahead of me is a box truck going a little slower than me, but the speeding car comes up behind the truck, swerving left and right, almost looking like the driver doesn't want to commit to one lane or the other. The truck must have seen this and decided to move over, but the car was swerving the same way at the moment, and so veers wildly to the left, and then loses control. Swerving to the right, the car slams head on into the concrete wall and crumples. I decide to pull over and help the driver, as I'm slowing down and pull over just ahead of said crumpled car when I see flames start coming up from the engine block. I hurry to the car, jerk open the door. It wasn't jammed entirely, just gave a little more resistance than normal. This young woman is in the driver's seat completely dazed, so I grab her and pull her out of the car. I walk her back to my car and about 3-4 minutes go by as the car is completely engulfed in flames. Mind you, not another vehicle has passed this scene and would not have for another 5 more minutes. I don't know if she would have been present of mind enough to get herself out of the car, but for sure if she couldn't, nobody else would have even passed by. Who knows if they would have even known to stop. She had obviously been drinking the night before and was still maybe drunk. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.